President Biden says his administration is making, quote, another push to end the war in Gaza after the U.S. helped broker a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah, a ceasefire that took effect today. CBS News foreign correspondent Debora Patta has more from Jerusalem.
Israel and Hezbollah exchanged heavy fire until the very last moment before the ceasefire began. But from early this morning, the skies were quiet for the first time in more than a year. Under the agreement, Israel must withdraw from Lebanon and Hezbollah retreat north of the Litani River, while Lebanese troops and UN forces keep the peace. Despite official warnings that it's still too dangerous to go home, thousands of displaced Lebanese strapped their belongings onto their cars and headed south, almost as quickly as they'd fled the violence before. Here, so many found that they had lost everything. Across the border, Israelis evacuated from the northern Kiryat Shmona were also reeling from the losses of war, and people are worried there that the truce will be breached. There is distrust on both sides. It's going to be a tense 60 days waiting to see if this ceasefire holds. And this deal has also revived hope for a Gaza ceasefire. But a former Israeli military intelligence officer told us he's convinced Israel will not be leaving the Palestinian territory for a very long time. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Debora Patta. CBS News contributor Robert Berger joins us now from Jerusalem. Robert, thank you very much. What does this Hezbollah peace deal for Lebanon mean for Gaza? Any impact?
Definitely. I think, Hamas has been isolated now because Hezbollah is no longer part of the fight. Hamas's strategy all along, according to U.S. and Israeli officials, was to try and turn this into a regional war, and they really succeeded for a while. Israel and Iran have traded direct blows for the first time in history this year, a couple of times with ballistic missiles and airstrikes. And now Iran, who is the sponsor of Hezbollah, is basically out because Hezbollah is out. So that leaves Hamas on its own now to deal with the war with Israel that's been going on for more than a year. Perhaps they'll be more likely to move toward a deal. That's the hope anyway.
So what are the obstacles, or at least what are the greatest obstacles between Israel and Hamas getting to this agreement?
The obstacles are the same as they have been all year. Hamas is demanding a complete end to the war, not a ceasefire, which has been basically what U.S. and other mediators like Qatar and Egypt were trying to get, was a phased deal with starting with a six-week ceasefire. Hamas wants a complete end to the war, permanent end to the war, and an Israeli pullout from Gaza to win the release of those about 101 hostages still left in Gaza. Israel refuses to agree to that because the stated aim of the war is to destroy Hamas, and that hasn't happened yet.
Does President Biden leaving office change the calculus here at all, or the recipe towards success?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of it could go either way because President-elect Trump has urged Israel to end this war quickly. So on the one hand, Israel could say, well, let's try to end this and get a ceasefire with Gaza before Mr. Trump comes in order that he doesn't have to deal with that as soon as he takes office. On the other hand, maybe Israel would wait and hold that ceasefire deal for when Mr. Trump does take office as to give him the diplomatic victory instead of the Biden administration. Remember, we've seen quite a bit of tension between the U.S. and Israel over Israel's handling of the war.
The 60 days that's been built into this ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hezbollah seems to be a lot of runway, a lot of green in front of the combatants. Is there any concern it won't hold for 2 months?
Of course, there's certainly that concern. Let's just say that today we got off to a good start. The ceasefire has now held for 1 day. It's supposed to go for 60 days, what they call the temporary ceasefire, with a gradual Israeli pullout from Lebanon, and Hezbollah is supposed to move 18 miles north of the Israeli border to the Litani, north of the Litani River. Let me just say that seems to be in the interest of both Israel and Hezbollah to make this work. Israeli forces are exhausted after 14 months of war, including both fighting in both Gaza and Lebanon. They're running short of munitions, while Hezbollah has suffered severe blows from Israel, including the assassination of its top leaders. So it seems to be in the interest of both sides right now to make this work.
Domestically here in the U.S., it's hard to escape this bottom line question. What are the prospects for there being real progress overall in the Middle East before January 20th, before the next president takes over?
Well, it's kind of dangerous. We've learned over the past year or so that timetables for a deal or for a ceasefire, it's kind of dangerous to make a prediction. Remember back in March, President Biden said that he expected that there was going to be a deal in a week. That was 8 months ago. So, and then Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, maybe 2-3 months ago said, well, we're at the 10-yard line. Only 10 yards to go, and we still don't have a deal. So I think we're going to try and see some creative diplomacy by the U.S. and mediators like Qatar and Egypt to try and get things moving again, but it's hard to predict how long this will take.
We're grateful for your service and your reporting and for staying up so very late for us tonight. Robert Berger from Jerusalem, thank you very much.
Thank you.